Yo, 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 what they do, what they do. I'm your host, Aaron J. Jackson, also known as Marvin Bay. And right here, we on the 41st episode of the Behind the Beard podcast. And right here, we got the homie Sean Maung in the house.
Yes.
For the people that don't know who you are, introduce yourself.
Well, first of all, thank you for, giving me the time to speak and connect with you. I'm always thankful to talk about my work. Probably most of you guys know me as a photographer. I've been shooting probably since about 05, so it's been about 15 years. And it all started probably just with my passion, my love, my curiosity just for people, for place. I grew up in LA, and at the time I was living in LA, and I think just LA is so big and so random and so diverse, and like the camera was an extension, a tool, a passport for me to just kind of make connections throughout the city.
Okay. What's so crazy about this is, like, honestly, this is an honor for me, because it's like, because how I found out about your work and what intrigued me about your work, you was photographing everyday people off top. That's how I gravitate to your work. So it's an honor that that I'm here sitting with you, interviewing you, because you just an OG to me. Like, you feel me? Like, because you've been in the game for a long time. So before we go dive into the interview, what you been doing so far during the pandemic?
Yeah, definitely. The pandemic was a major shift, I think, for this society. And just we're conditioned to always do something. That's part of just this society. We're conditioned to always do something, always be on the go.
Yeah.
And I think this pandemic gave us time to kind of slow ourselves down and really be more attentive with ourselves, our bodies, our minds. So during the pandemic, I've been mainly spending a lot of time just trying to be healthy, spending a lot of time exercising, being out in nature, being on my bike, but also still trying to maintain human connections with people.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a lot of different emotions during this pandemic, and a lot of people do have fear, and I totally understand that. I respect that. And I think out of that fear and out of that isolation and being home a lot, people are kind of like more nervous and shy to even say hello, to make eye contact. So still trying to maintain love and human connections with people, either through my camera or just through just trying to shine light and have those similar light forces connect during this time. So yeah, it's a time, I think, just for us to be more in tune and attentive to just what's going on with our mind, body, and soul now.
Especially being a photographer, we so used to being outside, just documenting. So it's like when the pandemic or like, the whole Corona stuff started happening, it was just more like, damn, I gotta stay inside. I want to just photograph shit. But I know out here, it's just like, one of my homies, he was just telling me, like, because he's a photographer as well, he was just saying, like, yo, this is like history in the making. Like, just having people photographing people with their mask on. Sometimes you're probably not gonna photograph people with their mask on, but it's like documenting for years to come, just experiencing what a time we was living in at this time.
For sure. I mean, I remember, because even when the pandemic first popped off, and I really didn't know what the circumstances are or how deep this was, I still had my bike, and I would just bike around a very calm and empty city and take pics. And this is in the height of people being a little more afraid and paranoid, not knowing what was really going on with this. And I realized, like, the majority of people were cool with me talking to them and taking their picture. And also it brought back memories, because I noticed that the block, like, I grew up in LA, and growing up, the block was very prevalent. Like, people were on the block. We played football on the block. Different ages, groups, characters were all on the block. And biking around during the pandemic, I saw families and people going back to, like, just being on their block. And that brought back a lot of just good memories of being like, yeah, this is how it was growing up. Like, this is like the way it should be. Like people
Exactly.
like coming together and just saying hello to your neighbors or just being outside.
Yeah,
You know.
yeah. So you talked about, you being born and raised in LA. But matter of fact, I mean, like, by the way, that's just like very rare.
Exotic.
Very rare, and it's kind of similar to where I'm from. You know,
Yeah.
not too people are born and raised from, in Miami. But what was your upbringing like in LA?
Yeah, I would say growing up in LA, I grew up around everybody, and I
Mhm.
think that's always been a positive. Like I think I got to see and meet people from all different backgrounds, all different worlds, all different ethnicities, class, and because of that, I think that made me the type of person that I am, and that made me the photographer I am.
Yeah.
Because I think growing up out here, you could either, I think there's different worlds you can inhabit. Like you could be a real dominant force out here. You could be a dominant force and you're just walking and you're not looking either way.
Mhm.
But I was more kind of shy growing up.
Mhm.
And because of that, I always was, what's the word, sizing up or adapting to the type of personalities around me. And I was always very aware of the people around me and find a way to make a connection. So I think LA really, especially growing up, it really instigated me to just be sensitive and aware of so many different worlds and find a way to make a connection in those worlds. And yeah, I think even my own histories from, I'm mixed, I'm half Irish, I'm half East Indian.
Wow.
My father is an immigrant from Burma, and he came here in the late 70s. My mom is from LA. She's from Panorama City, and she was an artist here in the early 80s. And I think just even those backgrounds and kind of what they showed me through their lenses. And then, yeah, just the blocks I grew up on. Like I grew up on blocks that there was a very strong sense of just multiculturalism. There was a strong sense of not just everybody kind of had their own vibe, and it wasn't all white people, it wasn't all black people, it wasn't all Latino people. It was, a good mix of people fucking with each other over their subcultures, over being like, oh, this person's dope, he skates, no matter what race or ethnicity is, he's a good baller, let's fuck with him, he dances, he's cool. So I think growing up was like, it was more about the subculture in a lot of ways. Not saying that race and ethnicity is not present and not dominant, but there was also the element of subculture that kind of like gravitated people together no matter where they were from.
That's interesting because growing up, I was a shy kid as well, and it's kind of similar to what you were saying, like adjusting and adapting to your environment and just seeing the different people that do different things, but you also cool with the same people. You know what I'm saying? And it's interesting because growing up when you was doing like certain things, oh, that's not cool, that's not cool, we don't do that. But then the more older you get, they appreciate what you do. You know what I'm saying? But when did you start picking up a camera growing up?
Yeah, so I remember it's probably like 21 or 22 that I never went to school for photography, but I started just gaining more of an interest in it around that age, and I picked up a used Olympus OM1 camera from like a used camera spot. And then from there, it was just really just going out, trial and error. So probably when I'm 37 now, so probably when I was like about 21, 22.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did you mold your eye into photography? How did your eye grow into it?
Yeah. I think there's some different ways. Like I think going back to just growing up in LA, there was something inside of me being like, okay, I want to showcase like that heart and soul of LA. Like I want to show like just the real ass people in LA, or the most interesting people in LA. But that could be anywhere. It could be from West Virginia to Florida to LA. I just want to show that heart and soul of a person. And I always kind of had that, I think, growing up, just seeing those people. And then I started just seeing photographers that really spoke to me. Like there used to be, I was going to school in Olympia, Washington. and I was going to this college called the Evergreen State College, which is this small school. But I remember there was this record store, and in the record store they had a zine section, and they had this one zine, like this is around 2005. They had this one zine called Hamburger Eyes. Have you heard of Hamburger Eyes?
No.
So Hamburger Eyes is still around today, and back then they would release zines every month of just like cracking ass street photography, mainly from Cali, but also New York. So I started seeing that zine at the record store, and I was like, damn, like I see this, I feel this.
Yeah.
And then I think I started seeing, people like some of my favorite photographers that I think inspired me were kind of a mix of photojournalism and portraiture. Yeah. So from a portraiture standpoint, I loved like Jamel Shabazz. Like, for sure. He was like one of my, I saw his work and I was immediately drawn to the balance between the portrait, but then the culture. Yeah. And then New York too, in the 80s.
Especially around that time.
Yeah, exactly. So all of that was like, damn. And then on this side, obviously, Estevan.
The GOAT.
He's almost like the LA version of Jamel in a certain way. But same thing, Estevan just brought that intensity. Those two probably my favorite portraiture artists. And then from a more photojournalist standpoint, I love Joseph Rodriguez.
Why that sounds so familiar?
And Joseph Rodriguez is from Brooklyn.
Yes, yes. He did the Spanish Harlem, correct? Yes, yes.
Yeah, so I love Joseph Rodriguez for his balance between kind of photojournalism, but also just portraiture. And then Bruce Davidson with Subway.
Yeah, Bruce Davidson is...
those four in general probably, and then throw in Hamburger Eyes, were like, those five I just like really kind of was like, damn, I got that same energy. I know I could manifest that in my own way. And I tried taking, like I wanted to take the portraiture style of Jamel and Estevan, but then mix a sense of like spontaneity to it. Yeah. And then even like, I remember I was selling zines at Echo Park 2 weeks ago. Wow. Just to be in the mix, because I'm tired of people like just on some digital shit. I was like, I just want to be on the mix. I'm gonna be in Echo Park selling some zines. And one dude there was like, hey, this reminds me of like some Terry Richardson. And I was like, yeah, like I didn't really have the glamour of him, but I saw his work and I wanted to get that informalness. Like, you're right here and I don't know how you got right here, and I'm gonna take that pic.
The moments. That's exactly. That's the photographer's, one of the photographer's job, to capture a moment in time. So when we look at the past, when we get older, it's like, damn, you know what I'm saying? Just memories. So yeah, I was just about to ask you who's your favorite photographer. You just answered that. That's what's up. And it's like, I can see that in your work though, the inspiration. And that's why I was like, when I seen G-Body, it was just like, yo, like the way that the depth of field and you talked about like that around the time when you just in the moment, just like, let me just take your picture and then, you know what I'm saying? So that makes sense.
And that one in particular, well, there's a couple things. You mentioned depth of field, and I'm going to say this, at the end of the day, a dope photo is a dope photo. No matter if that's on your phone, a point and shoot, or the most like antiquated 4x5 camera, a dope photo is a dope photo. But I pride myself in, like I said, I didn't go to school for photography, but I checked out books and I learned.
You drew your inspiration.
You know, I learned about using depth of field. I learned about using shutter speed. I learned about, or I'm constantly still learning the technical side. And I think that creates a deeper photo. So I'm not going to just knock anybody, because if your photos are flying dope and you're just using whatever, more power to you. Exactly. But I do pride myself in still trying to learn more technical skills to get maybe a deeper photo. And then that G-Body, that was, I had just moved back to LA. I was living in New York, and that was me just like right out the gates back in LA. And like, I remember I was like driving for Uber at night. I was kind of working like almost like at this kind of like gnarly club or like lounge, doing kind of security door. And so I just had more of that, like that energy for G-Body. So that's an intense one to pick up.
What was the process like, having those, I think it's 3 volumes or 2, it was 2 or 3
of G-Body. G-Body was just one, but the
Just
Screw
one?
York City
Yeah.
was a couple different
Which
volumes.
one was the one with YG on the cover?
Yeah, that was the Screw
That
York
was Screw
City.
York, okay.
And we did, I think, 3 of them.
Yeah, that's why I got confused, with the 3. But what was that, when you created G-Body, because when I looked at G-Body, what gravitated me, it was just a mixture of different people,
Mm-hmm.
but a mixture of, like, the streets, and then a mixture of, like, okay, you going to Venice and document a family. Like, what was your mind, your mindset creating that project?
That's just my mindset in general.
Mhm.
Like, to me, I fuck with everybody.
Yeah.
Like, I'll be on Venice, and there might be in Venice, there was in G-Body, there's a photo of this surfer family. It's the daughter and kid.
Yeah.
And that's like a 2 or 3 generation surfer family.
Mhm.
But that's just me being at the beach and randomly meeting them.
Mhm.
There's photos in there, and I'm in like a tent near MacArthur Park, and dudes are smoking meth. You know, and it's just like, I thrive off the randomness of life. I don't want to just be caught up on Melrose. I don't want to just be on Venice. In Venice, like, to me, I want to be all city. And like G-Body, to me, try and just represent being all city, being like, there's life, there's beauty, there's intensity all over wherever the world, but in LA, you know, all over LA. So why just stick to like one zone
thing,
or one type of
Open
thing?
your mind
Yeah.
and be free minded. Let's see. Do you remember what was your first shoot ever? I know it's hard, but
No, actually I do. Because I looked at the questions, and I remember that because, all right, so I think one of the first shoots I ever did was, I was in New York. It's probably just a couple years in learning, and I saw this girl waiting for the subway. And at that time, I didn't have like a book or anything to show my work. But I remember I made business cards. And I would take a photo of someone, and I'd give them my business card, and I'd say, here, email me, I'll send you the photo. So this girl, she was cool. She was probably like 20, and she was cute. And I took her photo, and I gave her my business card. And I remember she emailed me, whatever, like a week later or 2 weeks later. And she's like, hey, I'm that girl from the train. Can we do like a lingerie shoot? You know, like, I was like, yeah, hell yeah. And like, I remember I like rented it was in this neighborhood called Sunset Park, and it was like this like hourly motel run by these it was like a Chinese hourly motel. And I remember taking her there, and that was like one of the first shoots I did. It was strictly just for, you know, for photos. But I was like really amazed that she didn't even know me, that she would just like hit me up and reach out to me to be like, let's do a lingerie shoot, just me and her. You know, and nothing happened outside of the photos, but I was still thankful for that openness. And that was, I remember, one of the first shoots I did.
What about your first big opportunity as a photographer, and what was that moment like for you at that moment? If you can remember.
Let's see what the first kind of bigger opportunity I had. I would say I started getting recognized when I was living in New York, and you know, I had been making zines for maybe the past year. And in New York, there was this collective. They're still around. They're called 8 Ball Zines.
Yeah, I heard of them.
They might be called 8 Ball Community now, but at the time, they took over a newsstand in the subway, and they converted the newsstand to nothing but like art books and zines. And I submitted my zine at the time, which was Screw York City, into that newsstand. And no one knew me. I wasn't in any art scene. I wasn't trying to chill with anybody. And that zine was the best seller out of that newsstand. And that was just everyday commuters in the train station. But like, to the people that were running that newsstand, in particular, a dude named Lele, he was the dude that ran 8 Ball. He wanted to meet me. He was like, yo, who's this person like doing this and selling this? And from there he met me, and from there he put me on, and he showcased, he 8 Ball Zines had a special showcase at the New York Art Book Fair. Every year they have like a special showcase where they'll showcase like 3 or 2 individual artists. And I wasn't known. I didn't have no Instagram. I had a couple of zines out, but he put me up with the dude, one of those dudes that was in Kids. I forgot his name. He has like an art gallery.
I know you're talking about, but I forgot the name.
Him, and then this other dude from like Sweden. And I'm like sitting with the three of them. We all had our own like individual releases. I'm like, damn, like I don't even know what the art book fair is. Like I don't fuck with these worlds. Like and so I would say from there things just popped off, and it's all through the strength of like zines, like through beyond zines, just like printed matter, just through printed things. And you know, from there, like 300 Records, you know, they hit me up about doing like a project with Shy Glizzy, but you know, the art directors there, I think they had saw my zines too. So it all just kind of stemmed from like self-publishing and just getting your work out in a physical manner. Talking
about publishing, in your own words, what do you love about publishing your own books and just printing as in general? Because you know, I see right here you got like prints everywhere on the wall, and that and it's just different.
You have complete creative control. That's the first thing. When you self-publish, you don't have to rely on anybody to give you that green light. Like you have the freedom to create and produce whatever you want. Exactly. And like I think it's really disappointing that people are so wrapped up in like the quote unquote art world or a gallery, and they're basing all of this off of like a couple people's decision to showcase you. I was like, none of these people are gonna understand what the fuck I'm doing, because none of these people like choose to even go into any of these worlds. So it's like, if I have the power to create my own things, I have full complete creative control. And then also from a physical standpoint, I think there's just something really tangible and deep to like just physically touch something, like an item. Like even, I know this is kind of random, but I remember listening to like a Kanye interview maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and at first I didn't get what he was talking about, but he was talking about products. And you know what I'm saying? I remember that interview. And like at first I wasn't sure what he was talking about, but he's like, I just want to make products. And he's like, there's just that great feeling of like having an item, having a product, like either a game system or a shoe. And then I started revisiting, even growing up, like I used to collect Source magazine, or I used to have basketball cards, and all those things are products. And it my bad to cut you off, but it's like when you feel those things, you feel like it's part of your life. Exactly. You know, and that's a good thing about printing. So that's just like, to me, it was like, all right, this is another way to like physically feel something beyond just like looking at something on like the internet. So like off camera, you talked about, or we had a private conversation talking about you being an educator and you was involved in the community. Let's talk more about that and how that came about. Yeah, I would say even like when I was in college, my emphasis in school was never like art. My emphasis in school was more about like social justice, education, because I feel like those are very selfless things. Like when I started to become more of an adult, 17, 18, or 19, I really was drawn, and I had a lot of respect for just activists, people from Gandhi to Malcolm X to just people that were selfless, that went beyond, care about the people. Exactly, that went beyond the individual, the quote unquote American individuality. They were thinking about just the power of people and uplifting people. And I was drawn to that a lot. So I started, my main emphasis was doing community work through adult education. And I've been working as a GED teacher for a long time. I've been working as an English as a second language teacher. I've done work in jails. I've done work with parolees. And I guess one thing is that work, I was doing that work before I picked up a camera. And a lot of that work informed me as a photographer, whether that's like you have a GED class and you have to find a way to make a connection with a lot of different walks of life. Exactly. And that could be said to same thing with photography, you know, like, so they both almost just kind of are symbiotic in a way. They correlate, you know, and that's why when I look at your work, and by you saying you was an educator or involved in the community, it kind of goes hand in hand. And that kind of, it's like a plus because you know how to communicate with people. Like my grandma, she was in the school system. So like the way that she approached people, she's very informative and just love talking to people and getting involved in certain things. So that kind of goes hand in hand. Would you agree? Oh, yeah, definitely. They inform each other, you know, and even like some of those, one of those Screw York City ones, the one with YG, the majority of those photos were in a neighborhood I worked in, a neighborhood I lived in. You know, so it was like very 365 in the sense of like, once you're like, you might not even have a camera, but the more time you spend on a certain neighborhood, a certain block, a certain street, you're subconsciously getting closer. You know, so that education, that community work was just like, you know, just connecting me deeper to make photos and connections with people.
So, you know, when I look at your photographs, you have like a mixture of black and white and color. Which one is your go-to? Cause at one point when I was photographing, I used to just shoot like black and white, black and white, black and white.
Yeah.
So I know it's like a preference between, you know, different photographers.
Man, I mean, probably I would say black and white, but I love both. You know, like usually what I do is I just one roll is black and white, the next is color. Like I think color is a little more difficult to do. I think like color is a little more, maybe say temperamental in a way, but at the end of the day, I love both. I love both.
How do you balance your work, like your work schedule, with like having free time within yourself as well too? How you keep that balance?
And when you say work, you mean both like photo and teaching?
And just teaching and versus just having time to yourself.
Yeah, I have a good balance.
Yeah.
No, I have a good balance. Like at this point, man, I'm not really. I'm 37. I don't care about being in any scene. I don't care about doing any hard drugs. I smoke my weed, you know, and I drink my herbal tea, and I stay healthy. And my main concern at this point is just taking care of my mind and body, and you know, being respectful and loving to people too. And so it's a priority for me to just, when I do have time, just to make sure that I'm good. You know, so definitely. It's not too much of a tough balance right now.
Yeah. So you have Nike under your belt, or the Nike campaign under your belt. How does that feel? Because the way that you documented it was very LA, and I loved it. You know, Nike, you know, did that. Yeah. So how do you feel about that?
Yeah, man, that was cool. Cause I mean, obviously it was for the Cortez shoe. And that's such a deep and powerful and symbolic shoe, especially for LA. Like, I mean, I would never wear that shoe growing up. You know, like you had to have the juice to wear that shoe. Like you couldn't just be like a regular dude. Like you better you're gonna get checked if you had that shoe growing up. So that shoe is a very like powerful shoe, but it's also a very LA shoe. You know, and like there's no way I wasn't gonna be half stepping with this. Like I had to come correct. And I give props to the creative director for that shoot. He runs this ad agency called All Day Every Day. His name is Kai Reagan. And he was cool. I think he understood that too. And he just was like, I remember this was a couple days before the shoot. He's like, hey, the scouting director is going to come pick you up. Just show him where you want to shoot. You know, so they gave me a lot of freedom to pick the locations. And that was necessary, you know, like, because you can't just shoot like the Cortez shoe and have it be like, I don't know. I'm trying to think of like just some basic, like at the farmer's market or some shit. Like you can't at the Grove. You can't be, you know, like you had to really represent that shoe. But I was down to do it. I was like, I think I put in my work as a photographer to represent for shooting that. And yeah, it's cool. Like, it's always nice to get a job like with Nike, but I try and tell people like I want to be known for my personal work, you know, and I was recognized by my personal work first. So at the end of the day, like I'll take a job like Nike. If Nike wants to hit me up again, they should be hitting me up again after how they put that shit on blast. They should be hitting me up again, but I haven't heard nothing from them. I don't know why, but but I'll take like an Adidas job or whatever, but at the end of the day, it's about my personal work. That's the foundation.
How does it feel like just seeing your work on the damn billboard?
Yeah, they were all city. They were all over, and like that's surreal. That's super surreal because I really came into this. I didn't pick up a camera to be like, oh, I want to be famous or I want to be recognized. I picked up a camera for me, and I was just shooting for me.
And telling your story within your photographs.
Yeah, just to shoot, just for me to do my thing. And to get to that point where I had billboards all over the city I grew up, and I was like, that's a beautiful feeling.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. Most definitely. Among your photographs, I know this is a hard question.
Yeah.
Because I deal with it too.
Yeah.
What's probably your favorite photograph of all time, or so far, rather?
Yeah.
That's hard. That's a hard question.
I that's something like I'm never good at when people ask me what's like my favorite or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like
It's
favorite
your babies.
movie. You know, yeah, it's just like all the children I have all over the country. But it's like, man, I can't say I have a favorite. I would say one photo that really stuck out to me, and someone brought it up recently. It was probably in 2015, and I was in Spanish Harlem for the 116th Street Festival.
Okay.
And it's a photo. I remember I was using a wide angle lens, and it was like a 28 millimeter, and those are sometimes harder to get the right photo. You know what I'm saying? Because like, if you get it right, it's gonna be popping, but if you don't get it right, it's like it's distorted kind of.
Exactly.
So I was shooting with this 28 millimeter on my Olympus OM1. It was black and white film, and there was this dude, you know, probably like 20, 21, and he was in a wheelchair. He had like a motorized wheelchair, and he had like but he was looking fresh. He had like his foam posits on. He was looking good for the festival, and then he had like, I think 4 of his homegirls, and I went up to them because I just love the power of. First of all, I had a certain sense of compassion for him because he's at a very lit live event, and he can't fully partake in the sense that he's in a wheelchair. But he had these 4 girls, four homegirls that also had a lot of character, that were there kind of protecting him in a way. You know, I mean, he might not want to say that, but like, you know, they were there also just with him too. And I remember I asked them, I was like, can I get a photo? And just the way they posed, like 2 stood like kind of on his wheelchair, elevated, and then 2 were by his side. And like, I was always humbled by, you saw with those women that they had his back, you know, and
the empowerment of it.
Yeah, you know, they had his back, and then you could see in his eyes, though, he was cool, he was peaceful, but there's almost a sense of like sadness in him, though, because he can't fully experience this event. And that photo always kind of, you know, gives me chills because I just love the certain dynamics of it, and I just love how those girls, you know, some were like 16 or 22 or whatever, they all had his back, you know. And I thought that's one of the ones I kind of remember.
And that's the beauty of photography, because when you could tell a story, it's not even about just telling a story, just like these moments in time. It goes back to moments, and when you document, it's like, damn.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you don't even have no words, like, you know, just like when we were just looking at the Imperial Project, it's like, you can't even say nothing because it's like, oh my God.
It's history.
It's history.
You know, it's history. And I think, you know, this society is so quick to put money over everything. And when we do that, there's a lot of times we're going to erase history. You know, like if you look at a lot of these cities right now, people are putting money over culture. People are putting money over the neighborhood. And because of that, you know, you're losing the soul of the cities. So I think a lot of times through photo, you hopefully have a piece that could be like, yeah, this is what this place was about, or this is what this is the culture. These are the people that made the city such a powerful thing to begin with. So yeah, I think always photos could be that historical reference to just a time, and it could be a time within your life and be like, yeah, I remember that. You know, I've had certain people come up to me and be like, damn, I was one of those kids in your photos. Like, not literally, but, you know, just like bringing back. Or even, 2 weeks ago, a dude who had been locked up for a while, you know, he wanted to order one of my zines, and he's like, you know, those photos bring me back to just life growing up, you know. And like, damn, like those are always such complimentary things to say when people could like feel my photos and just have it resonate within themselves.
Exactly. So I noticed, you know, you shoot a lot of film photography. Why film? In your words, I know why. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm a film photographer. I can only imagine. But in your own words, why film?
Yeah. I feel like just film has more of that flavor. You know, whether just the saturation, the grain, the magic.
Yeah.
You know, it's more temperamental too. You know, you could relate it to like that fly ass female. You could relate it to that fly ass female, which, you know, there's gonna be that pleasure, but there's also gonna be that pain.
Yeah.
You know, and same with film. There's sometimes I'm like, fuck, like damn, that shit didn't come out the way I wanted to.
Yeah.
But then when it does come out, it's super active. It hits. Mm-hmm. So it's, you know, it's just like that fly ass female. You're gonna build that cup with pleasure, but there's gonna be some times you're gonna get burned too. So.
I told my homegirl the other day, I'm like, cause she knows I have my homies, shout out to Dakker's Film in Miami, like they develop my film, but I scan it. So I don't care like what it is. I'm gonna stop what I'm doing. I'm gonna get it developed, and it's kind of like a drug. I don't know what it is. Film photography is just, I don't give a damn how much money I put into it. Yeah. I'm getting it developed. I'm doing this and that. And it's just something about film photography that just gravitates the soul. Like how you say, it's the grain, just the authenticity of it. Digital is cool, but at the same time, it's nothing like film. Even like when you see like films from like back in the day, like in the 60s, like actually motion pictures, it's like it just hit different.
Hell yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And you're speaking of black and white, just to the viewers, one black and white movie shot in film that I think it's a cool movie, but if you really are into black and white film or film in general, I saw the old version, I think it's in the 60s, of Lord of the Flies.
Okay.
And that's all in black and white, but you see that deepness with the black and white imagery and that shot on film. So if anybody kind of is looking for like what we're talking about in the movie version, I would say check out Lord of the Flies, because it's shot in black and white and you could kind of just get that intensity on it for sure. So
one last question, man, before we head out. You got any advice for anybody that's want to take the similar path that you taking?
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to me as a photographer, it probably started off with me not even labeling myself as a photographer and just being humble about it and just being passionate about it and just doing it out of the love of doing it and not just keep going straight, just keep trying, keep doing it. The more you shoot, the more you're going to learn just by seeing your own photos, by being like, oh, I could do this different. And I'm, like I said in the interview, I'm constantly learning. I'm constantly reevaluating what I'm doing. And I think just start off with passion. And some of I remember this one artist in the 30s and 40s, Jacob Lawrence. Have you heard of Jacob Lawrence? I heard him. Jacob Lawrence has a great quote, and he's just, I'm kind of paraphrasing it, but he just said, don't worry about the technical side. Like, if you're passionate about what you're doing, you're naturally going to want to get better.
You're molding it.
Yeah, you're naturally going to want to learn to be better. If you have the passion first, you're constantly going to want to grow. You're constantly going to want to do it. So kind of like with that quote and like what he said, it's like if you love what you do, naturally you're going to get better at it.
Exactly.
You know, so it's like, don't look at it for the clout. Don't look at it, for recognition. That'll come over time. Like over time, people naturally started recognizing me, but that wasn't in the back of my head at all. It was just like, yo, like how do I just go out and get content, or just for me something to do? It's like, all right, I got the day off. Let's take the bus somewhere. Let's take the train somewhere and just like get a random shots, make random connections. So I guess that's the main advice I would say,
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you for coming on the show.
For sure.
This is an honor. I've been like, honestly, and not just because you're here, like when I'm like, sometimes when I'm going through like, just trying to envision my photography and shit like that, what like vision I'm trying to go in when I'm outside documenting, I look at your zine G-Body. So like, it's an honor, and you know what I'm saying, and I'm glad I actually got to meet you and everything, because it's like all those years I was just, I don't know if you said it on camera or off camera, but all those years I was like looking at your book, but I never knew the photographer. Yeah. And I always try to figure out who was the photographer. I know I believe your ad name was there. but I wasn't sure.
I think I might have just put my email.
Yeah, email. I think that's what it is. And I was just searching. Someone told me like, let me search him up. Let me finally search him up. And then that's when I followed you on Instagram.
But that's an element too, and that's a conversation because you're not the first person to like be like, damn, I thought you were this person, or I thought you were that person, or I thought you were, like sometimes the photos take off on a whole new personality.
Exactly.
And I try to tell people like, yo, I'm a pretty chill, calm person. Like, even though I'm a very objective person though, like I could see someone and be like, that person has a story. Let me get into their world. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm in their world like 24/7. So I think a lot of people are very like, they have these like ideas of maybe like, well, damn, that's you. And then the other thing though, but that also stems on the conversation too of like, and I'm not going to say it's one way or the other way, but like, are we looking at the photos more? Or are we looking at like the character of the artist? Like, so to me, sometimes it's like, yo, if that's a dope photo, don't worry about whatever that person's wearing or who that person is. Like, just focus on what's in front of you. And like, so there was a while, I don't think I even put my name, and like literally people just be like, what, that's you right there? Like, so. And
when I found it, I was just really looking at like, damn, I want to see more of his work.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and when I got to your website, I was like, yo, this shit hard. Like, this is crazy. And then turn to find out, because I've been seeing your work from the Nike shit and then the Nike shit and the other shit on your site. I was like, wow. Yeah. That's so crazy,
Yeah, so I don't like, honestly, that's another thing though too, advice too, man. It's like Nipsey said it best. This is a marathon. It is. And like, this is not, this is a marathon, and you just do you.
Keep on going.
And at the end of the day, perhaps you might get recognized. As long as I'm happy and I'm thankful and I can stand by my work, that's the first thing that matters. Hopefully people fuck with it. Hopefully they don't. Or hopefully they fuck with it. Maybe they don't. It is what it is. And like, so over time, maybe some people start seeing it. Some people don't. But I can't. That's out of my control. Yeah. Like, all of that's in my control. And that's the advice I'm saying to other photographers. All that is in your control is make the most beautiful, powerful, interesting work that you can, and live by that. See what happens. And. But if I'm wrapped up in like, who's recognizing me, who's seeing me, I didn't get this job, that's gonna drive you crazy.
It's gonna move you backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how can the people get in contact with you if they wanna, see more of your work and everything like that? Yeah.
Let me give you my address. You can send a letter in a PO box. No. I would say, obviously the best way is probably social media. My Instagram is Old School Sean, but not with a D. So OLSKOOLSEAN, Old School Sean. And that's probably one of the better ways. And then my website is just seanmaung.com. Just start there, and you could even just Google my name and go down a rabbit hole. I still low key have a Tumblr. Just because,
me too. So Tumblr's still lit.
Yeah, just because I like to like almost have a reference of my photos, and I think it's just good to be calculated with, like what. So there's certain audiences with everything, and like maybe on Instagram, certain people looking at that. Maybe on Tumblr, you could be a little more free with certain things. On the zines, like there's plenty of stuff I have in the zine that I can't even show on Instagram. Yeah. So it's like each element, like has its own validity.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, episode 41. I appreciate you again.
For sure.
And I'll see you next time.
Yep.